Thank you. Who do you think discovered water? Well, we know for sure it wasn't the fish. It's sometimes very difficult to see the context we're in, particularly in the world of today with the communications technology and proliferation of information that we're seeing. It's hard to see the context we're in. Over 40 years, I've worked for some of the world's most trusted brands. These brands have chased me into every region of the world, in every culture, every religion, and every language. It's been a fascinating experience, and it's helped me see how important the communications business is in the idea exchange between people, because that's where communications lives. What we have today is we have a post-digital world. This is a world of very diverse and connected communications, where control of information is more individualized. You can store it, retrieve it, create it. You can opt out of it too, although that's getting harder to do. And people are the first media, the people and the people they connect with in their communities. But there's a huge gap in understanding between people. And I want to talk about that today in the context of trust. It's not the first time that we've seen communications technologies affecting societies and economies. Going back to the 16th century, we saw the collision of three major technologies that really shaped society and caused a change in the control and origin of ideas. The first was the canal system in Europe, and I'm always interested in this when I talk about this around the world, because I hardly ever see anybody in the canals anymore. But in the days that they were built, this was like an internet, and it connected towns and, brought goods and things down into villages from different places, different dress, different languages, different foods, different beliefs, and people's beliefs lead to behaviors. The second thing was the Gutenberg press, which we know helped to store and transport information. And the third thing was some technology developments in the sailing vessels. The rear rudder was a huge technology advance, and then sail design and the number of masts. So what you had is a collision of technologies that rapidly increased the flow of information and people's access to new ideas, new cultures, new beliefs. And this led to the voyages of discovery, where people saw entirely new cultures. It led to a revolution in ideas called the Reformation. So how does the world look today? Well, today we have what I call Reformation 2.0. Again, it's an issue of who has control of ideas and information. Who can we trust? Ourselves, individuals, institutions. It's a question that is more rapidly disseminating in the world because our fishbowls are changing. And our fishbowl, by the end of this week, will be 7.1 billion people. 5.6 billion people will have mobile phones. And 50% of the 5.6 billion are able to connect into the internet now without a laptop, a desktop, or a landline. And they may never have one. Very different world emerging. Reformation 2.0.
Some people think the internet is a bad thing. Somewhere your identity can be stolen, your home invaded, and your savings robbed witut anyone setting foot inside your door. It is one of the most dangerous weapons ever created. A way for the unhinged to spread evil free of supervision or censorship. A place for mankind to exercise its darkest desires. An open market where you can purchase anything you want. Orwell was right. The internet has taken us to a place where everything we do is watched, monitored, and processed without us ever realizing. Some people think the internet is a bad thing. think? Some people think the internet is a good thing. The most powerful educational tool the world has ever known. It's preserving our history, making sure that in the future we never forget the past. When disaster struck Asia, the volume of aid donated by ordinary people through websites outweighed that of their own governments. The internet is a place that is free of state regulation, censorship, and control. The only place where freedom of speech truly exists. Orwell was wrong. It is not the state that holds all the power. It is us. Some people think the internet is a good thing. What do you think?
It's interesting that the campaign wasn't very successful because they didn't run the commercials back to back. They ran them independently and assumed that people would remember them. It doesn't work the same. One thing about this speed of communication is that people can more readily experience you and your brands. And they can more instantaneously let you know what they think of you. Sometimes they can punish you. I just want to stop for a minute and have a cigar here. Right on your point. And I know that somebody here, this is a matter of trust. So I'm not going to light it because I promised Lisa I wouldn't light it. And the point I'm trying to make is that we've learned about a concept called secondhand smoke. About 20 years ago in this room, half of the people would be sitting here smoking. I know that sounds strange to you, but I'm a little older than I look. Half the people would be smoking, and we'd ride in airplanes, and we didn't even think of it. Smoking away. And, then it started, and somebody said, well, if somebody could be allergic to it. And if you were in a meeting and somebody sat next to you and said, excuse me, could you put out your cigarette? I'm allergic to smoke. You'd be a real jerk if you didn't put it out right away. So then it went from this kind of inconvenient truth to an undeniable truth that secondhand smoke was bad. And we decided that maybe we'd have one conference room where the smokers could have meetings. And then that changed from one conference room to one in the whole building, a smoking room. And then it changed from that to you have to go outside the front door, and now it's 100 yards outside the front door. And the point I'm trying to make is that the concept of secondhand smoke has evolved to the concept of secondhand culture. Because our conversations and our ideas are going to places we don't expect them to go. They're talking to people who they're not intended to talk to. And they can create bad feelings and bad smells like smoke. So being much more aware of secondhand culture is a key insight into trust and building brands globally. So how do we know what truth is and who to trust?
This is the truth. This is the truth. If we turn things upside down, we can't be the best country in the world. I'd be lying to you if I said that Argentina has a great future ahead, that we will be a safe country, that our economy will be strong, that our children will be healthy, get an education, and have jobs. Before anything, you must know, our country does not deserve such things. And I'm convinced of this because I know the Argentine people. Corruption and hypocrisy are in our nature. I refuse to believe under any circumstances that we could be a great country in the coming years. Thanks to the people's votes, this country is sinking to new depths. But there are even more surprises to come. Argentina has only one destiny. And whether we like it or not, this is what is real. You should know that I believe exactly the opposite. This is what is real. And whether you like it or not, Argentina has only one destiny. There are even more surprises to come. This country is sinking to new depths, but thanks to the people's votes, we could be a great country in the coming years. I refuse to believe under any circumstances that corruption and hypocrisy are in our nature. And I'm convinced of this because I know the Argentine people. Our country does not deserve such things. Before anything, you must know that our children will be healthy, get an education, and have jobs. That our economy will be strong. That we will be a safe country. Argentina has a great future ahead. I would be lying to you if I said that we can't be the best country in the world if we turn things upside down. This is the truth.
Wow. I will say that Lopez Murphy didn't do well in the election. He got about 2% of the vote. But this was a video that I saw at Cannes, and when I saw it, I was completely taken by the idea of it. And a lot of the creative directors in Cannes felt that it should have won the Grand Prix that year, but many just said it was too simple. So how do we see this, our frame of reference? What is our frame of reference in this changing world? It's a real challenge. And the key is that you need to adopt a new frame of reference. At least I would propose that to you today and give you something to think about that may help operate better in this changed world that you're seeing. What we've been doing is we've been thinking global and acting local, or acting global and thinking local. And we've been doing that for quite a while. Actually, the idea was attributed to a Scottish biologist and town planner in 1915. And it was a way of thinking beyond borders. But it helped us look outside of our own borders, but it was a geographic concept that I found as I began traveling and being chased all over the world on those trusted brands I mentioned. I found it was less helpful because I felt that the borders were being dissipated by communications that were going over the borders, and consolidation of trade and fair trade agreements and the rapidity of shipping and logistics across borders were dissipating the walls that were once there. So I thought, you know, I need something that'll give me a better idea of how I should look at the world so I can see it better, so I can be more sensitive to the differences I'm seeing. Why do people in India bob their head? Why do the Japanese say, hi, hi, hi? And that doesn't mean I agree. So I decided that the idea was to think like the sun. And I remembered in my art classes, my art teacher told me to step back from the painting, because if you're the distance of your arm to the drawing, you need to step back, way back, and to be able to see it more objectively. And I thought, why think like the sun? Well, because the effect that the media is having on brands globally, because it forces us to focus on brands, markets, and to act as global citizens, to be responsible for that secondhand culture effect that I was talking about. And it's because multiculturalism is where this whole thing is building to, and where brand building is heading. And more importantly, it's always on. So I get up in the morning when the sun comes up, and I go to work, and like you, I connect in with people all over the planet on my brand or brands, trying to judge the perception, and we're in touch with consumers of a variety of cultures all over the world. And as all day long, as the sun goes through the sky, I'm in touch with those people, and at the end of the day, like you, I'll flip my light off, and the sun goes down. I'll go home, have something to eat, put my head on a pillow, and for all intents and purposes, I thought this perception building has stopped and ceased until the next day in the new dawn when the sun comes up. But the sun doesn't go up and down. It's we here on Earth. And as we become more interconnected, and even more than we are today, this idea of authority for ideas and trust becomes a bigger issue. So the world is not one homogeneous place. Think like the sun forces you to step way, way back and look at the world as one richly diverse, multicultural place of individuals. One of the key factors in making people different in terms of communications is the language. And language is a technology. It's nouns and adjectives and participles. And as you learn a language, it becomes invisible to you. What we're finding through a lot of research that's going on in neuroscience is that we've grossly underestimated the effect that language has on human understanding. Grossly underestimated it. Because the language you first learn between the ages of 0 and 5 hardwires your mind. It's sort of like taking an English plug, that three-pronged one, and trying to put it into a German or a French socket. It doesn't go, okay? Now, we can learn second languages and we can use translators, but the gap in terms of understanding is greater than we think. It's sort of like language becomes invisible in the same way that when you were learning to ride a bike, when you were learning to drive, or when you were going from Mac to PC or PC to Mac. At first it was very visible, but once it was mastered, it became invisible.
Au Japon, on consomme peu de graisse et le nombre d'infarctus y est plus faible qu'aux États-Unis. En France, on consomme beaucoup de graisse et le nombre d'infarctus y est plus faible qu'aux États-Unis. En Inde, on boit peu de vin rouge et le nombre d'infarctus y est plus faible qu'aux États-Unis. En Espagne, on boit beaucoup de vin rouge et le nombre d'infarctus y est plus faible qu'aux États-Unis. Au Brésil, on fait beaucoup plus l'amour qu'en Algérie et le nombre d'infarctus des deux pays est plus faible qu'aux États-Unis. Conclusion, buvez, mangez, faites l'amour autant que vous voulez. Ce qui peut tuer, c'est de parler anglais.
So we all come to this race for ideas with our own biases. And it's interesting to ask somebody what language they think in. I've never found anybody that feels that that's an affront or too personal of a question. But finding out what language somebody thinks in is very, very important, particularly if you're talking Japanese and French. Japanese, the verb is always at the end of the sentence. So if I say, how's your day? Or is it up? Is your business up or is it down? Did you have a good day? I've asked you 3 questions, and if you're Japanese and you're thinking in Japanese, you're going to go, hi, 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 hi. And you think, oh boy, they're understanding me. It's a good year. Things are fine. But the problem is they're still retrofitting the verb on the first question. So it's a difficult challenge, and the key to trust in this environment is to celebrate individuality and difference, not be afraid of it, to trust that, but to pursue it with a great curiosity. And you need a frame of reference to do that with, one that shines more light on things that you normally took for granted, one that helps you see differences and insights that you may not otherwise have seen. And that's Think Like the Sun. Thank you.